To establish a quorum, please.
Nancy Corrigan.
Nancy Corrigan, present.
Christian Lotta.
Present.
Luz Molina Lopez.
Molina Lopez, present.
Dee Dee Owens.
Dee Dee Owens, present.
Ariel Pay.
Ariel Pay, present.
Joe Rosenbaum.
Joe Rosenbaum, present.
Katrina Salazar.
Katrina Salazar, present.
Michael Savoy.
Present.
And Yen Tu.
Present.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. The CBA has provided the opportunity for the public to participate via the WebEx platform. When we take public comments, we will begin by taking public comments from those individuals attending the meeting in Sacramento, and then I will ask the moderator to open up for public comments via the WebEx. Each public comment will be allocated up to 5 minutes. The CBA's mission is to protect consumers by ensuring only qualified licensees practice public accountancy in accordance with established professional standards. This mission is derived from the statutory requirement that protection of the public shall be the highest priority for the California Board of Accountancy in exercising its licensing, regulatory, and disciplinary action functions. Whenever the protection of the public is inconsistent with other interests sought to be promoted, the protection of the public shall be paramount. I'd just like to remind everybody to pull a microphone close to them so we can hear. Thank you. First, let's start off with any public comments for items not on the agenda. Sacramento, seeing none. Moderator, please open it up for outside Sacramento.
This is the moderator. The Q&A is now open. Instructions are on the screen. If you would like to participate, click on the question mark inside of the square and type, "I would like to make a comment" in the text field that appears, and make sure it goes to all panelists. If you're calling in, press *3 to raise your hand. No requests have been submitted. Would you like me to close the Q&A feature?
Yes, please. We'll skip item 2A as we're awaiting the DCA member to show up. So let's go on to item 2B. Agenda item 2B is the resolution for retiring California Board of Accountancy Qualifications Committee member Pradeep Budhihara. Whereas Pradeep CPA has faithfully served as a member of the California Board of Accountancy's Qualifications Committee from November 15, 2018 through November 30th, 2022. And whereas throughout his term of service at all times, Pradeep gave fully of himself and his ideas and acted forthrightly and conscientiously, always with the public interest and welfare in mind. Whereas he has discharged these important responsibilities in a manner reflecting great credit upon himself in the accounting profession, and whereas his colleagues wish to express to him the high esteem and regard, therefore be it resolved that the members of the CBA express heartfelt appreciation for his outstanding contributions he has made during his term of service on the Qualifications Committee and to the consumers. Can I get a motion to accept the resolution? Ms. Owens.
I move to accept the resolution.
Ms. Salazar.
I'd like to second.
Is there any public comment from Sacramento? Moderator, any public comment from other members?
This is the moderator. The Q&A is open. Instructions will be on the screen. If you would like to participate, click on that question mark, type comments, send it to all panelists, or press *3 for those calling in. No requests. Would you like me to close the Q&A?
Yes, thank you. Ms. Reed, call for a vote.
Nancy Corrigan.
Yes.
Christian Lotta.
Yes.
Luz Molina Lopez.
Yes.
Dee Dee Owens.
Yes.
Ariel Pay.
Yes.
Joe Rosenbaum.
Yes.
Katrina Salazar,
Yes.
Michael Savoy,
Yes.
and Yin Tu.
Yes.
The motion carries.
Thank you. Moving ahead to agenda item 2C. The committee interest survey will be used by the newly elected CBA president to appoint members to the Committee on Professional Conduct, the Enforcement Program Oversight Committee, the Legislative Committee, and liaisons to the Qualifications Committee, Peer Review Oversight Committee, and the Enforcement Advisory Committee. Attachment 2 is from the CBA Member Guidelines and Procedures Manual and provides detailed information regarding the CBA committees. Each of the committees will have 2 CBA member liaisons. Once you have reviewed this information, please fill out the attachment 1 and return it to Ms. Reed by Thursday, December 2nd. Thank you. Okay. Since our guest has arrived, we will move back to agenda item 2A, which is a presentation by the Department of Consumer Affairs, Office of Human Resources, regarding the Executive Officer Recruitment Process. Ms. Cheryl Heller, Manager of the Office of Human Resources. Welcome.
Hello, thank you. Good morning. Today I will provide... Hi, good morning. Can you hear me now? Okay. Today I will provide an overview of the Executive Officer Recruitment and Selection process, review the duty statement and recruitment announcement to obtain your feedback and suggestions. I will begin with the Executive Officer Recruitment and Selection process at this time. The EO recruitment and selection process will require 2 members who will have time and interest to participate in the selection process. We do plan to formally appoint a search committee in today's meeting. The members will be chosen by the board president to be part of the search committee to assist with the entire recruitment activities. In today's meeting, we will have an opportunity to review and finalize the duty statement and recruitment announcement, which will be used for the EO advertisement. The EO recruitment is typically advertised for 30 days and is advertised by the California Department of Human Resources, or CalHR's platform, but may be advertised externally, such as through the Capital Morning Report. If you choose to advertise outside of the CalHR platform, please let me know. An advertisement period range of 30 to also 90 days is also sufficient. During the advertisement period, I will work directly with the search committee to determine application screening, interview questions, and potential interview dates. I will serve as the contact person on the advertisement and will provide the search committee with the applications received each Friday on a flow basis. The search committee will review and screen applications received based on the desirable qualifications as noted on the recruitment announcement to determine candidates for initial or final interviews. Depending on the number of applications received, if initial interviews are recommended based on a large candidate pool, they will be conducted with the search committee. Reference checks will be conducted for top candidates prior to final interviews with board members. At the next scheduled board meeting, in closed session, final interviews will be conducted for top candidates. If it is too far out, the board may do a meeting pursuant to the regular 10-day rule with proper notice just to do final interviews. This will require a vote by the board members to select a final candidate. If more time is needed, it is recommended to complete this on or before the July 2023 board meeting. The selection of the candidate must be kept confidential until candidate notification has been completed and accepted, and the unsuccessful candidates have been notified. The selected candidate will also require criminal offender record information or Corey clearance. If they currently do not have a Corey clearance on file with the board, which will be facilitated by OHR, DCA is required to obtain fingerprints and conduct a criminal conviction record review for all employees and candidates for employment for positions with access to Corey in order to maintain record security from the Department of Justice. Once the selected candidate has passed Corey, OHR can work with Public Affairs to make the formal announcement. On the effective date of the appointment, the oath of office must be administered, which may be administered by any board member, DCA director, or their designee. The oath of office must be administered in person, and OHR will provide the oath. This concludes the EO's recruitment and selection process overview. Do you have any questions regarding the EO recruitment and selection process? Okay, looks like I can move on. Board President, if you don't want to mention the search committees today, you can email them to me or confirm them at this meeting.
No, I have no problem telling you who they are.
Okay. Go ahead.
Miss Katrina Salazar
Okay.
and Miss Nancy Corrigan.
Okay. I will ensure that they receive the applications weekly every Friday once the announcement is posted.
Thank you.
Next, I'd like to review and go over the duty statement and recruitment drafts that were sent to you for your review this week. For the duty statement, are there any changes the board would like to make? Okay. All right, so a vote is required to approve the duty statement.
Can I get a motion, Ms. Tu?
I will motion to approve the duty statement.
Second.
Thank you. Any comments from the public in Sacramento? Moderator, any public comments from those outside Sacramento?
The Q&A is now open. Instructions will be on the screen for your reference. If you would like to participate, click the question mark, type comment in the text field, and make sure it goes to all panelists. If you're calling in, press *3. No request. Would you like me to close the Q&A?
Yes, please. Ms. Reed, call for a vote.
Yin Tu,
Yes.
Michael Savoy,
Yes.
Katrina Salazar,
Yes.
Joe Rosenbaum, Ariel Pay,
Yes.
Dee Dee Owens,
Yes.
Luz Molina Lopez,
Yes.
Christian Lotta,
Yes.
and Nancy Corrigan.
Yes.
And the motion carries.
Thank you. Next, we will review the recruitment announcement. I'd like to bring your attention to the desirable qualifications section and ask you at this time if you have any changes or additions or deletions to this section.
No.
The board will also need to vote on how many pages the statement of qualifications will be. The current draft is 6 pages, which is standard for executive officer recruitments. You can choose more or less at this time. Any recommendations on changing the 6 pages?
I'm sorry, I just don't understand the number of pages.
Yes. So with their application package, they will submit the application, a resume, and a statement of qualifications. It'll be a narrative of how their education and work experience makes them qualified for the position, and also how it relates to the desirable qualifications on the job announcement. So again, the standard is 6 pages. You can do more or less and choose at this time.
Thank you.
And are they answering those specific questions that are on the 6 pages that you're providing?
Yes, they can address the qualifications that that relate to them.
Well, would part of it be, though, their letter of interest, et cetera? I mean,
Yeah, I mean, how do you
I'm trying to
know?
understand what the 6, I'm trying to understand the 6 pages, and if that's
Maybe
sufficient.
Katrina has it right.
So my question is this setting a maximum on the number of pages in terms of their own constructed free response?
Yes.
So where it's not prompted because there wasn't anything in materials that gave us questions. It's just, we don't want a 30-page qual.
Right.
So theoretically, if there's 6 pages of questions,
It's the equivalent of a statement of intent. It's their
Yes.
documentation of their qualifications.
Like a personal statement.
In addition to a resume. It would go with the resume. So the resume is not part of the 6 pages. The statement of qualifications is limited to 6.
And you can score the desirable qualifications based on the entire application package, which will include at a minimum the 3 items, and also we are also requiring 3 letters of professional references.
you have to give us a little time, only because this process is new to this board.
Okay.
Because it hasn't been undertaken in, 20 years? And it is an extremely important function of not only these 2, folks that I've appointed, but the entire board. Ms. Tu.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think 6-page for qualification statement is sufficient because we will have letters of recommendation as well as their resume. And if they cannot succinctly tell us how much they are qualified within 6 page, I would have a problem with that anyway. Thank you. Do you need a vote?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm asking for one,
would then.
But then what I'd also like to do is, since you mentioned 30 days initially, I'd like to kind of couple not only the vote on the amount of pages, but that we'd allow up to 90 days as well. I think 30 is a little narrow.
You don't have to vote on the amount of time the recruitment is advertised. If you don't get enough in your initial time, we can re-advertise and give you more time.
Okay, but I just want to make it known that the board wishes to articulate that we want to go beyond what is in writing. So I don't have a problem coupling those 2 together in one motion, if someone would like to make that motion. Ms. Tu.
I'm happy to do that. The 6 pages, and if we need to move to 90 days opening of the position, we can do that.
Ms. Salazar.
May I second that,
Yes,
and
yes.
then also start with a question?
First, second it.
Yes, I'd like to second that motion.
And then any comments or questions from the board regarding the motion. Ms. Salazar.
So I'm trying to understand the process. Thank you, Savoy, for taking time to flesh this out, because this is one of the most important tasks our board is going to be involved in, for many, many years. So my clarifying question is regarding the 30 days versus 90. As I think I heard it, the 30 days is a posting that will allow us an interval upon which to reflect upon each week's submissions. And my concern with the motion is that if we initially list 90 days, then even if we find an amazing candidate on day 28 and have a robust batch of candidates that the committee would think would be sufficient to start interviewing, would we then not be able to start that until the 90-day period ended? So we are, by that motion, pushing out. We won't have an option to go back, is I think my question that I'm asking for confirmation on, because I want to make sure as we vote on this that we do think about that.
Yes, you understand that.
Before you answer that, can I clarify my motion? My motion is, I think I would like us to be able to say that we'll go the standard 30 days, but allowing for in the motion that if we need to, so that we don't have to come back and actually make any vote, to extend it up to 90 days if we need it. So it's more like yeah. Does that make sense?
The clarifying motion is not to amend the posting to 90 days. It's to simply have clarity on the flexibility that search committee parameters will be operating under. I second that clarified motion. Thank you.
Okay, for clarification here, the initial posting will be for 30 days? Okay,
Yeah,
we'll keep that.
Ms. Bowers has a comment or two before we take more questions from the board.
So just a couple points of clarification. So I wanted to make sure you understood in the recruitment announcement, the attachment that came from DCA out to the members. In that document, it has desired qualifications for the candidate for this position. So one of the things the recruitment committee will be looking for is to, in the 6-page, no more than 6 pages, statement of qualifications, they'll be comparing that to the desired qualifications listed in that document and scoring to make sure they've touched on all of those areas. The 30-day period is what would go out to the public initially, telling them in 30 days is the final deadline for you to apply for this position. If the recruitment committee didn't receive sufficient applications and wanted to extend that further, they could do that. You wouldn't need a vote of the board to do that. The 90-day period really is the length of time it likely will take the recruitment committee to develop the interview questions, to review the announcement that will go out referencing the final filing date, and then receiving those applications on that flow basis, grading the applications, and then establishing the pool of candidates. It's anticipated that the selected candidates, so let's say the recruitment committee interviews, hypothetically, if you have 20 applications, go through the interview process, narrow it down to a select 2 or 3 or whatever the committee decides. The plan, or what is anticipated, is in July of 2023, those final selected individuals by the recruitment committee would come before the full board in a closed session, and the board would have an opportunity to conduct interview, and the board as a whole would make a final vote on the selected individual. That's planned for July. That person cannot formally be appointed to this position until after my formal retirement date in August. So that gives about 4 to 6 weeks, give or take, for notification to go out to the selected individual, making sure the background is complete, fingerprints are received as necessary, and then any candidate not selected to give notification to those individuals as well. And then the appointment would be made somewhere around the middle of August. So if that helps just kind of form the whole picture, I just wanted to make sure you understood the process.
Any more questions or discussions from the board? We have a motion and a second on the table. Any public comments from those in Sacramento? Seeing none, moderator, Any public comments from those outside?
The Q&A is now open. Instructions are will be on the screen for your reference. If you would like to participate, click the question mark, type "I would like to make a comment" in the text field, and send it to all panelists. If you're calling in, you can press *3 to raise your hand. No requests. Would you like me to close the Q&A?
Yes, please. Ms. Reed, call for the vote.
Yin Tu,
Yes.
Nancy Corrigan,
Yes.
Christian Lotta,
Yes.
Luz Molina Lopez,
Yes.
Dee Dee Owens,
Yes.
Ariel Pay,
Yes.
Joe Rosenbaum,
Yes.
Katrina Salazar,
Yes.
and Michael Savoy.
Yes.
The motion carries.
Do you need a motion on the recruitment statement itself, or?
The recruitment announcement and the number of pages for the SOQ.
Did you need a motion on that as well? Because I don't think we had one, did we?
Was that included?
Not on the announcement, we had it on the recruitment process.
I think that covers it.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
All right. So I will get the recruitment announcement posted within the next couple of working days. Thank you, board members, for the opportunity to provide you with an overview of the EO recruitment and selection process and reviewing the duty statement. Thank you. Have a good rest of your day.
Thank you for being here. I'm sure we'll look forward to working with you in the immediate future. All right. Back to the agenda. Item 2D. This item provides members with information regarding committee appointments with the National Association of State Boards of Accountancy, or NASBA. The following California Board of Accountancy members were appointed to the NASBA committee. Ms. Corrigan was appointed chairperson of the Education Committee. The NASBA Education Committee supports the Boards of Accountancy by representing NASBA in the academic community and serves as an advisory resource on education matters related to the accounting profession. Ms. Corrigan will also continue to serve on the Relations with Members Boards Committee. The NASBA Relations with Member Boards Committee is charged with providing reciprocal communication between Boards of Accountancy and NASBA Board of Directors. Ms. Salazar was appointed chairperson of the Diversity Committee. NASBA's Diversity Committee develops a diversity program that ensures NASBA provides opportunities, encouragement, and support to people of color and women to participate in NASBA service and leadership roles. Ms. Chu was appointed to the Communications Committee. The NASBA Communications Committee promotes effective and efficient communication among boards of accountancy, NASBA, and their respective stakeholders. Me, was appointed to serve on the nominating committee as an alternate for the Pacific region. The NASBA nominating committee nominates officers and directors in accordance with NASBA bylaws. In addition to these new appointments, Ms. Salazar will continue to serve as the NASBA Director at Large, and Ms. Corrigan will continue to serve as the NASBA Pacific Region Director. Wow, a lot of participation. Thank you all for volunteering your service. Item E, discussion and possible action regarding consideration of CBA experience requirements, task force, and the recommendation of the attest experience requirement necessary for the authority to sign reports on the attest engagements. Ms. Salazar will report as the chairman of that committee.
Thank you, President Savoy, and good morning. My name is Katrina Salazar, and as Mr. Savoy mentioned, I am the chair of the CPA Experience Requirements Task Force, also known as CERT. So that's what I will be referring to it throughout this discussion. The agenda item at issue today is item 2E, discussion of possible action. So again, I just want to allow folks time to get to the correct agenda item in the materials. It is the same one just described by our president in the introduction. I think what's important is to provide a little bit of background because this issue reaches back to our November 2021 meeting where the members discussed 3 agenda items related to our state's accounting experience requirement for CPA licensure. And the first is that an item that provided information regarding evolution and current experience requirements for CPA licensure, including a prior Board of Accountancy's task force consideration of this same topic. There was an item regarding various policy issues staff have identified related to experience requirements and a recommendation to establish a task force to discuss both the experience requirements and possible modifications, which the Board of Accountancy adopted. And third, an item related to a framework for the development of a task force, which included objectives and composition for this group. The Board of Accountancy directed CERT to use the following question as a guide to evaluate the experience requirements within our state for CPA licensure. And that directive is the present attest experience requirement necessary and sufficient to support the Board of Accountancy mission to protect consumers by ensuring that only qualified licensees practice public accountancy in accordance with professional standards? That's a mouthful, but there's a lot in there. Since that meeting and the establishment of the CERT task force, there have been 3 meetings. Those were conducted in March, May, and September of 2022. During each meeting, the CERT discussed various topics and raised questions regarding attest and general accounting experience requirement as it relates both to our state as well as nationally. In order to address the guiding question and manage the direction of the discussion, CERT broke down the question into 2 parts, and the first was focusing on the issue of necessity to maintain an attest experience requirement. And second, if the requirement were to be maintained, then shift to a focus on sufficiency. So during May and September of this year, the focus was on necessity. And during and after extensive discussions at the September meeting of the committee, CERT made a following motion regarding a recommendation for this board's consideration on the necessity of the primary question. And that recommendation is, CERT recommends that the attest experience requirement is necessary for the authority to sign reports on attest engagements. This motion was adopted by CERT with a vote of 5-3, with 1 member being absent. And in the materials on page 7, you're going to see some highlights of those discussions. I will say they were robust. And the task force members that were opposed to this motion had some comments that are worth noting. And those are that consumers in general are not aware of the attest experience requirement, and most jurisdictions rely on general experience. States with this model do not have a higher degree of substandard work. Second, licensees have a professional obligation to understand and share whether or not they are qualified to do work. If there is no attest experience requirement, this ethical obligation remains. The third item is professional standards already do address this issue. While the experience is important, having the experience does not guarantee that a licensee will not, and we'll quote a phrase used, perform work above their pay grade. So these were some of the opposition sentiments, as well as the last one, which is completion of the attest experience requirements as a licensure process represents only a point in time and only addresses candidates' experience at that point of licensure. It doesn't necessarily provide information of their current experience qualifications 5, 10, or 20 years after initial licensure. However, this motion passed and there was great support for it, and the members who supported that motion had important points as well. Among them, first, California has a desire to be more preventative and proactive and not reactive, and that enforcement and peer review, although excellent processes, do occur after the fact. Second, that California wants to reduce the likelihood that licensees don't put themselves out there saying they can do things they cannot do. And lastly, having the attest experience requirement combined with the qualifications committee of the board is a way for the Board of Accountancy to show the general public that we're watching out for them. So with that, that is a recap of many months of conversations, education, and deliberation. And with that, I would say, should this Board of Accountancy accept CERT's recommendation, there is an agenda item, which is 2F, which outlines some next steps in the committee's work. The second agenda item would also seek additional input that this board may wish to provide the CERT task force as it would embark upon its continued activities. So with that, CERT requests that the Board of Accountancy adopt CERT's recommendation that the attest experience requirement for licensure is necessary for the authority to sign reports on attest engagements. That concludes my report as chair of the CERT committee, and I would like to now turn discussions back over to our president, Mr. Savoy, and I will do best to answer any questions. Thank you.
So that comes forth as a duly formed motion and second. Therefore, we're open at the board level now for discussion on this motion before we turn it over for public comment, before we turn it over for vote. Members of the board, Ms. Owens.
So I'm not sure if all of these are questions or just a train of thought that I want to have a discussion about. But first, I want to thank staff and the CERT committee. I mean, I went through the notes and the materials. There's a lot of work that was put into this, so I really appreciate that. One of the questions that I had as I was thinking through this is around the data that would demonstrate that the additional experience requirement actually is protecting the public. Like, do we have fewer enforcement matters because California has that versus another state? Or is it stopping licensees from moving into the audit field because of the extra burden and knowing that we don't have a lot of auditors are dwindling, right, in our profession? Is it hindering that, which is also an issue for the public to have opportunity to find folks to do the work they need to have done? So I guess my first question is around data. Did the committee consider the data behind whether or not the additional experience requirements truly is providing additional protection to the public?
So, and we also have committee members as well who could speak with that. My recollection from that, there was robust conversation about that, but there was not, as I recall, a deciding, definitive answer to that question about the statistics. I think the conversation revolved around our continued monitoring of the disciplinary functions and the board role and the role of the QC. So I don't know if Mr. Franzella or staff have more clarifying comments to kind of recap that. That was, interestingly, different people looked at the same sources of information and came away with different perceptions about the application of it. So Thoughts, Mr. Franzella?
Thank you. Yes, the topic has come up. It came up, I think, in all three meetings, and there's just not a repository of that type of information available. So the board the CERT focused primarily on the board's work during its mobility implementation, and focused on how other states handle discipline based on its previous review of those states through NASBA, and how that compares to the Board of Accountancy's process. But there's not this definitive data out there that speaks one way or the other.
But in your present role and seeing over the last few years, has there been less discipline in this area, or is it about the same?
I'll say the majority of our discipline likely centers around the attest function, whether or not it's generated as a result of external complaints, peer review, or the SEC and PCAOB, because the majority of the information that kind of comes from them and the discipline that we have reciprocal discipline for, generally, I won't say exclusively, but generally centers around the attest functions. So, and those individuals are practicing sometimes not just in California, but obviously in other states as well. So it would be something that would likely be seen by other states' licensees.
And understanding that that level takes place post the work being done. So whether it's lack of doing a peer review or a bad peer review, or just somebody dropping a dime on deficient work. So I understand it's hard to assess that because most of our emphasis is post the work being done.
No, I appreciate that. My other question was, how often does a CPA with a general license apply to get an attest license? Is that a path that folks take quite a bit?
It is a path. I would not say it's quite a bit. I believe the last year's numbers was 130 individuals who applied for that conversion, but it is an avenue that individuals can avail themselves for.
Because the other concern I was thinking through is the ability to get the number of hours, right? If you work for a larger firm that does attest on a considerable basis, getting those hours probably can happen fairly easily. If you're working for a smaller firm that maybe has fewer audits, getting those hours could be harder. So is it limiting, again, the number of potential CPAs with attest experience that could do audits?
So I'll attempt to answer that. In terms, what you're talking about is related to sort of the pipeline discussion, because there are very few other states, and in fact, no states of our size that have a two-tiered licensing system like we do. We don't really have a comparison to it. However, your questions are important because, again, without a benchmark, though, we don't know the impact, but it is one of those steps that is required, and it is, in some people's viewpoint, an additional barrier to entry. And so, again, it can take time to get those hours. It may not be available. And so we have anecdotal feedback, but you are now touching on pipeline, and it is unfortunately, I think, as our committee learned, something without a lot of robust data for it, because we know our experience currently, and we can look at our licensing activity report and see trends. But we also know those things happen within a larger environment.
But I think it's difficult for a reason. Because as one of my tax partners used to say, auditing is a very serious business. So I don't think we do it on purpose, make it harder, but it is harder for a reason.
Just to comment on Mrs. Owens' questions regarding the extra burden, or if it is an extra burden of 500 hours. I disagree that it's an additional burden because someone who wants to be in audit, 500 hours is roughly about 4 months of experience if you're working full time. So it's just the hours can be satisfied just in the regular course of getting your experience and pursuing your career. So I don't have the perspective that it's necessarily an additional requirement, because if you're working full time and that's what you're trying to do to get the experience, it kind of comes just with being in a full-time audit department or maybe a rotation in a firm of getting your audit hours. So I just wanted to make that comment. So I don't foresee it being a barrier to entry per se, as the requirement is for signing audit reports, right? Which typically that's not something you're doing at the entry level in your career. And I think it would be very easy and accessible for candidates to do that.
Ms. Corrigan.
Yes, and just to kind of really all-inclusive for what everybody has already said, the pipeline issues, these very topics that we are touching upon are of a national concern, and they're trying to figure ways to accommodate, smaller firms. Can internships count toward hours, that sort of thing? Yes, pipeline is a big topic. And, even a question as to whether CPA evolution is discouraging licensees, and the studies that AICPA and NASBA have been doing, gathering data as they are, have indicated that's not the case. Those that want to step up and do this, as Ms. Lata is expressing, are doing so. And so it's not really inhibiting those that want to take that extra step and do so. And I think UAA is also kind of taking a look at experience requirement and, what should be needed, what should be required. I mean, it is a huge topic, but I think, again, it's such an important one. The qualifications are so important that it really is necessary. Thank you.
No more, Ms. Owens? Good. Any other discussion at the board level regarding this motion? Any public comments in Sacramento regarding this motion? Moderator, any public comments outside of here?
The Q&A is now open. Instructions will be on the screen. If you would like to participate, click on the question mark, type comment in the text field and send it to our panelists, or raise your hand if you're calling in by pressing *3. No request. Would you like me to close the Q&A?
Yes, please. Ms. Reed, call for the vote.
Luz Molina Lopez,
Yes.
Dee Dee Owens,
No.
Ariel Pay,
Yes.
Joe Rosenbaum,
Yes.
Katrina Salazar,
No.
Michael Savoy,
Yes.
Yin Tu,
Yes.
Nancy Corrigan,
Yes.
and Christian Lotta.
Yes.
The motion carries.
Thank you. For that part of their work, I'd like to thank CERT for their efforts. Obviously, it wasn't a rubber stamp committee by the final vote of 5-3. So I know there was a lot of deliberation, a lot of thoughtfulness that went into their decision. I've listened to their meetings, not having personally attended, and it was rather robust. However, assuming we got a yes vote, we added item F to the agenda, which is a discussion of possible action regarding the remaining policy issues for deliberation by the CERT task force. Mr. Franzella.
Thank you, President Savoy. Good morning, members. So the purpose of this agenda item is to provide the CBA with an opportunity to provide any additional guidance to CERT regarding remaining policy issues it will consider at its future meetings. As the CBA has adopted CERT's recommendation that the attest experience requirement is necessary for those seeking to sign reports on attest engagements, CERT's focus will now shift to the following two areas. First, one, a discussion on the second part of the CBA established guiding questions, specifically, is the attest experience requirement sufficient to support the CBA's consumer protection mission? And the second part would be an examination of various policy issues, specifically, first, accounting firms that provide attest services when the firm's ownership is comprised solely of CPAs who are not authorized to sign reports on attest engagements, licensees who are owners of accounting firms and want to obtain the necessary experience to convert their license to include the authority to sign attest reports. 3, reciprocal licenses issued with the authority to sign reports under Business and Professions Code Section 5087 without requiring verification of attest experience as part of the application requirements for licensure. And 4, consumer confusion regarding general and attest authorizations. So at this time, CERT is scheduled to hold its next meeting in conjunction with the CBA's January 2023 meeting. And while there's no action required of the CBA on this particular item, staff believed it was appropriate to provide the CBA with an opportunity to offer any updates and direction to CERT before it begins the next phase of its work. Beginning first with the sufficiency of the current attest experience requirement, which members can see outlined on pages 2 and 3 of the item. Staff have included an overview of the present attest experience requirement and background on recent discussion of the Qualifications Committee discussion on this topic. The QC did take up the sufficiency discussion at its meeting in, I believe it was July, and had made a initial determination from their perspective, given all of the checks and balances that exist within the licensure process, the Qualifications Committee, the recent update to the Certificate of Attest Experience requirement, that the current 500-hour and Certificate of Attest Experience requirement is sufficient. But at the bottom of page 3, staff have noted a couple of questions the CBA could consider as CERT takes up the topic, and namely, does the CBA wish the CERT to take the question of sufficiency up next? And if so, does the CBA have any feedback it wishes to provide CERT? And prior to moving on to the policy issues on the subsequent pages, I'd like to turn discussion back over to President Savoy to allow members an opportunity to provide any information they believe is necessary for the CERT to consider on this particular area of sufficiency.
Thank you. Mr. Franzella, open for discussion. Anyone? Guess not. Oh, I'm sorry, Ms. Molina Lopez.
Thank you. Thank you, President Savoy. I am a committee member on the CERT, and I would just like to gain information as to how long it would take to complete the 500 hours if it were to remain 500 hours. I appreciate Ms. Lara's insight into the fact that it may take, 4 to 5 months or something, and I just kind of want to understand if that's considered standard, or if it may take longer for other, if it's standard for it to take longer. So just to frame that a little bit as far as how the duration of the 500 hours, what is sort of the trend?
Answer that. Ms. Salazar first.
I'll tackle that. I think the conversation was referring to, so the discussion is it would take 4 months if the firm that you are being supervised at has a sufficient workflow to ensure that you are able to complete in all of the multiple areas of audit preparation that are outlined by the Board of Accountancy within those available audit areas. So I know, for example, I've worked with firms that had specialties in other areas, and so it was a challenge for them when they would hire a new staff person because they were more forensic accounting. In fact, they were all about rules and standards, but their practice area generally wasn't auditing. So if they brought someone new in, they had to work with another firm to try to assign out staff to work under the supervision on additional clients to help them achieve their hours. So it just depends. And so there is an example, say, for a forensic firm where you don't get into that firm without understanding rules, standards, and all of the important things that underpin the audit, yet for someone new, the practical experience just depends upon the client base. So typical, if you're working full-time at an audit firm where audit is the bread and butter, then that would be 4 months. But it might be a different experience for someone in a different work environment. But I welcome feedback.
Mr. Francella.
Thank you, President Savoy. I'd just like to provide just a little bit of clarification on the 500 hours. That is a component. It's not at 500 hours, it's not expected necessarily that you will have met all the requirements for the attest experience. That is there as a benchmark for presumably both the applicant and the supervisor to assess where they're at in relation to completing the attest experience requirement. The 5 criterion that we listed on, I'll try to find the page, I apologize. Page 2, the bottom of page 2, oftentimes require much more than 500 hours. And you'll see, I think there's some reference to it on the following page. It talks a little bit about the fact that it is a lot easier to do at a larger firm than a smaller firm, but we oftentimes see the hours in thousands, 1,000 hours, 2,000 hours, because you have to demonstrate to that supervisor's opinion that you not only have performed the various tasks, but that you understand those tasks. So 500 is an element of it, but it's likely not the most important. It's probably not the most important element of the whole sufficiency requirement. That's just one component.
Talks about supervisory capacity of audits, which doesn't happen in the first 4 months of working. So typically it is a few years to get to the point that you're able to apply for that license.
I'd like to add a comment to that. I just want to point out, too, that there are small firms, whatever that's defined as specifically, their focus is audit, right? There are some small firms that do a handful of audits, and then, there's a question as to, are they getting enough, are you doing enough to be, quality at it? But there are small firms, their entire focus is audit. I worked for a small firm and I got lots of hours. So they are all out there. I don't want to just totally say you must go to a large firm to get it fast enough. I think there's also a time requirement, is there not? I mean, for the applications.
Yeah, you have to have a minimum of 1 year of experience, and 500 hours, if you're just using that number, would be applied to the attest experience. Can be in that kind of environment. So, but again, I think the issue is that 500 hours oftentimes is used as kind of a benchmark, that's where they're going to get signed off at, and it's not. Oftentimes it is much, much, much higher, and individuals who are experienced a longer period of time can apply for the general experience. It can apply for the general license after a year, continue to gain that experience in the test environment, and then apply after the fact to convert that license at a later date.
Mr. Rosenbaum.
Yeah, just further, I'm a product of the large firm process, and the reason that sometimes it gets into the thousands of hours, and in fact, when I did mine, I think the minimum that the firm would sign off on were 2,000 hours of audit experience. And the reason, I think, is Mr. Savoy had pointed out, at a larger firm, it's very hard to get certain of these tasks done supervisory, because you're generally dealing with larger clients. And so every task is assigned to a certain level. So it's hard to get the appropriate levels. I think at a smaller firm, you probably are going to be able to experience some of the tasks a little sooner because it's a little more compact. And then I would further say that if your firm is not doing sufficient audits to get you 500 hours in your first year, they're simply dabbling in audits, and I think that's another reason why this requirement is a good one and a valid one.
Thank you very much. I do appreciate that insight, and that's exactly what I'm getting to, is a person that is not in the profession, has no clue. And so that's sort of the type of detail, the type of granularity that I wanted to get to. So I do encourage when we do meet next with the CERT committee is to speak about that, so that somebody that isn't aware of how long it actually takes, you know, does sort of have a way to frame it where it's not just, you know, 4 hours or 4 months, or that's not the standard at all. It's actually more, or you could be illustrated in other ways. And I do appreciate that insight. Thank you.
So, yes, Ms. Lara.
I just wanted to also support Ms. Corrigan and Mr. Rosenbaum. I also came from a small firm of about 20 employees when I started, and I was able to get my hours consistently over that short term due to being able to primarily only focus on audits. I also wanted to clarify, it's an attest experience requirement and not only just audits, but also there's other engagements such as reviews or other attest engagements that could satisfy that requirement as well. I just wanted to clarify that for our non-CPA members.
Thank you. So have you, I mean, I know there's not a specific action point here, but are you trying to ascertain more information from the board about the task of the task force is next step, or do you have enough information to move forward? Ms. Salazar first.
Oh, yeah, please.
So it seems to me that the committee is going to have to now prioritize its projects and meetings. And as I read this, maybe the input item that would be nice to get input on is from this group is the order. Right now, we have a 500-hour audit requirement that is necessary. I would say the debate about what would constitute a sufficient number, which is the next step, could I imagine it will take some discussion to arrive at that. But I think my question as the chair is that staff have addressed policy issues that exist with the current requirement. So as the chair, I look at it and go, whether or not it's 500, 1,000, or 2,000, whatever number the CERT committee addresses in terms of sufficiency, we do have some administrative policy issues to address. So I think the question I would ask is there a concern with the committee working with staff to determine the most appropriate priority? Because without having had those conversations, I'm growing concerned about the policy issues not being addressed for additional 6 months. So I don't know if Mr. Dominic has any input on that, but that would maybe be the one question I would have, if there is a burning desire to prioritize one over the other.
Thank you, President Savoy. Staff don't have a burning desire one way or the other. I believe in some respects in January, we would likely be bringing not just the sufficiency piece because it would only we would need some more direction from the committee as to what they would want to see. We're going to bring some of these policy issues as well. And is there certain ones that the board wants to provide a little bit more direction on, how they want CERT to explore that? And with the sufficiency, it's not really just about the 500 hours. I don't think it'll also be a look at if the board still has the CERT looking at sufficiency, which it sounds like it wants. We'll look at the hours, but we'll also look at the form to make sure it's, pulling the right information, getting the right information as well. So it'll be more comprehensive than that. But I anticipate in January we'll bring all of this. Just how we want to prioritize it, like Ms. Salazar says, will be something important for CERT.
Oh, and as Mr. Rosenbaum pointed out, some firms internally will not, they use this kind of as a guideline, but it takes a lot longer for the firm to sign off on that experience qualification. So people aren't about to sign Form E experience that readily unless you totally can abide by every line number, every item, and feel comfortable, because that person can be called in and say, how can you dare sign off on this person when they did the bare minimum? So I think firms themselves take it very seriously in their submission of that Form E to the board to enable that person to get the attest license. So these are minimum guidelines. Okay. So no vote is necessary on this item. I think you have enough information to go back and prioritize as you see fit, and asking the staff to help in that task. Okay, thank you. Next item G, which is a discussion of possible action regarding the National Association of State Board Accountancy's proposed revisions to the Uniform Accountancy Act model rules. Ms. Center.
Good morning. Sorry, you went through that one quickly, caught me off guard. So as the president mentioned, the purpose of this item is to provide you an opportunity to discuss the NASBA exposure draft of the UAA model rules and decide whether or not you want to submit a comment letter to NASBA. The exposure draft is included as attachment 1 in your item. It specifically addresses changes to the model rules around the granting of credit for sections passed on the CP exam, including redefining how the 18-month rolling period for credit is established. As a reminder, NASBA develops the model rules with the goal of promoting uniformity across jurisdictions. The model rules themselves are not regulations, but they serve as suggestions for how states may regulate in their specific jurisdiction. The item before you includes a comparison between the exposure draft and California laws and regulations. At the CBA meeting in September, this board approved initiating a rulemaking package that addressed, in addition to other topics, the granting of credits on the CP exam, including redefining how the 18-month rolling period is calculated. Therefore, staff included the proposed regulations found in attachment 2 in its comparison. Basically, we were ahead of the game. So that was good news, right? Staff have concluded that the edits to the model rules included in the exposure draft are warranted, and the California proposed regulations as currently drafted adequately address the issues in the model rules. Therefore, we recommend the board issue the comment letter in attachment 3. Staff will continue to monitor the proposed regulations as they go through the process, considering the draft model rules to note if anything do become a concern. And that concludes my presentation. I'll turn it back over to President Savoy.
Any comments from the board? So while there's no action item specifically or vote, you're asking if the CBA is being asked to review the exposure draft and consider whether to submit a comment letter.
Correct. There is a comment letter in there, and so it would be, if you would like to, you could vote on the submission of the comment letter.
I will entertain a motion. Ms. Corrigan.
I will second that motion. Thank you.
Well, who made the first? I said I will entertain a motion. You...
Move that we accept it. I guess you can't make motions, right? Thank you. It just sounded like a...
I will second Ms. Gordon's motion.
Thank you. Look at the Robert's Rules of Order. Any further discussion at the board? Any public comments on that motion from members in Sacramento? Moderator, any public comments from anybody else?
This is the moderator. The Q&A is open. The instructions are on the screen. If you would like to participate, click on the question mark, type comment in the text field, and send it to all panelists. If you're calling in, you can press *3 to raise your hand. No request. Would you like me to close the Q&A?
Yes, thank you. Ms. Reed, call for a vote.
Joe Rosenbaum,
Yes.
Katrina Salazar,
Yes.
Michael Savoy,
Yes.
Yin Tu,
Yes.
Nancy Corrigan,
Yes.
Christian Lotta,
Yes.
Luz Molina Lopez,
Yes.
Dee Dee Owens,
Yes.
and Ariel Pay.
Yes.
The motion carries.
Next item is letter H. Final actions and outcomes on legislature. The California Board of Accounting took positions in 22. Mr. Ibarra.
Thank you, President Savoy. I'm Patrick Ibarra, Information and Planning Officer with the CBA. Members, the 2022 legislative session has come to an end, and the governor has had an opportunity to act on all bills sent to him for action. This item contains a review of the disposition of the bills on which the CBA had taken a position at the end of session. As usual, the overall legislative tracking chart has been provided as an attachment, and it reflects the outcome of the bills monitored by the CBA. I primarily want to provide an update on one particular bill, but I am happy to answer questions on any of the legislation. That bill is Senate Bill 1443. SB 1443 extended the sunset date on several boards and bureaus within the Department of Consumer Affairs. The CBA took a support position on this bill. It passed the legislature and was signed by the governor. As a result, the CBA will now complete its sunset review report in 2023 and participate in legislative hearings in 2024. As you are aware, we have been bringing various parts of our sunset review report for your review throughout 2022. Now that our review date has been pushed back a year, we will be doing a presentation at the January 2023 meeting to discuss a new timeline for CBA approval of the report. The next legislature will convene its regular organizational session on December 5th, 2022, though it will not meet to conduct business until January 2023. An overview of the CBA's planned legislative activities for 2023 will also be brought to the January CBA meeting. That concludes my presentation, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? Thank you for your report. Next item, agenda item I, the Department of Consumer Affairs Director's Report on Departmental Activities. I believe we have a WebEx presentation by Mr. Darrell Holloway.
Hello, can everyone hear me? Hello?
Yes.
Oh, great. Hi, everyone. My name is Darrell Holloway. I'm a legislative analyst at the Department of Consumer Affairs, and I will be presenting a DCA update for you. New DCA staff. We are very excited to announce that the governor recently appointed leaders to the DCA Board and Bureau Relations team. Melissa Gear is serving as the DCA's new Deputy Director of Board and Bureau Relations, and she joined the department on October 3rd. She brings a wealth of experience to DCA. She previously served as the Chief Deputy Legislative Director at the Department of Insurance since 2014. She's also served at the California State Teachers Retirement System, California Attorney General's Office, and the Legislative Analyst's Office. Beginning November 14th, Yvonne Dorantes will serve as the new Assistant Deputy Director of Board and Bureau Relations. She has been serving as the Senior Emergency Services Coordinator at the California Governor's Office of Emergency Services since 2022, and a Policy Analyst and Task Force Coordinator since 2019. She was an Executive Fellow at Cal OES from 2018 to 2019. We are very excited to have this new Board and Bureau Relations team in place to serve and assist our boards and bureaus. DCA Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Steering Committee. Director Kimberly Kirchmeyer established the department's first Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Steering Committee to guide the department in its equity strategy, initiatives, and action plan. The DEI committee will hold its official kickoff meeting on November 9th, 2022. Strategic planning. In accordance with Governor Gavin Newsom's executive order, strategic plans in effect July 2023 and beyond must be developed or updated to more effectively advance equity and drive outcomes that increase opportunity for all. In response, DCA is revising its strategic planning processes to incorporate more inclusive public engagement, data analyses, and embedding diversity, equity, and inclusion into the strategic planning process. Over the coming months, the DEI committee will inform the strategic planning processes. By March 2023, DCA will begin implementing the revised processes and working with the boards in updating existing strategic plans or developing new strategic plans. The Our Promise campaign. It's that time of year again. DCA is excited to take part in Our Promise, California State Employees Giving at Work. Once more in celebrating 65 years of caring for California. This year, Our Promise Vice Chair is Lourdes Castro Ramirez, Secretary of Business, Consumer Services, and Housing Agency. And our DCA Our Promise co-chairs are Chief Deputy Director Christine Lally and Deputy Director Melissa Gayar. The campaign began on October 1st and will end on December 31st. The campaign allows Californians to donate to a nonprofit or nonprofits of their choice. With your assistance, DCA hopes to continue its tradition of generosity and caring for our communities through this year's campaign. Please assist us in spreading the word and encouraging all members and staff to make a one-time donation or donate online through Cal Employee Connect. California can be cared for as little as $5 a month. In-person meeting guidelines and COVID-19 safety measures. Though legislation is passed allowing remote meetings through June 30th, 2023, we are reminding boards that choose to hold in-person meetings of the safety measures, best practices, and recommendations for holding public meetings. When planning for upcoming meetings, please remember all board/bureau members and staff are expected to follow the state and local public health guidelines that apply to the area where the meeting is held. CDPH releases updated guidelines for the use of face masks. Please refer to those guidelines ahead of the meeting to determine the appropriate mask approach for your meeting. If masks are recommended for your meeting location, please post face covering guidance signage at your meeting check-in or entrance. Board member travel. As travel begins to pick up, it's important to remember that state travel arrangements must be made through DCA's approved travel agency, Cal Travel Store, or Concur. All board and bureau members and staff must use the most economical fares possible when traveling by air on official state business. Typically, this will be the Southwest Wanna Get Away option. However, there may be additional charges if changes are made to the flight. Flight changes to the date and time for personal convenience are not approved for a justifiable reason, and the traveler will be responsible for any associated charges. Additionally, Assembly Bill 1887 prohibits state agencies, departments, boards, authorities, and commissions from traveling to states that are subject to California's travel ban. There are now 23 prohibited states. On the website of the Attorney General, you can view the entire list of states. Partnership with the State Controller's Office. DCA will partner with the State Controller's Office to share information with consumers and certain licensees about the Unclaimed Property Program. State law requires banks, insurance companies, corporations, and other entities to report and submit their customers' property to the State Controller's Office after a period of inactivity, generally 3 years. Certain DCA licensees will benefit from this partnership as it will educate them about their responsibility to report unclaimed property and assist with compliance. Additionally, the program is a great resource for all consumers to locate their unclaimed property. As always, DCA is here to help, and if there's anything we can do to assist, please reach out. That's the end of my presentation.
Any questions of Mr. Holloway? Thank you very much. We appreciate your participation.
You're very welcome.
At this point, let's take a 15-minute break and come back just a tad after 11, please. Thank you. Welcome back. I know it was more than a tad. It was a tad plus a smidge. It was a tad. Moderator, we back on?
Yes, this is the moderator.
Thank you. All right, next item on the agenda is the report of the Vice President, Katrina Salazar. Thank you.
Why, thank you, President Savoy. Item agenda 3A is regarding the appointments and reappointments to the Enforcement Advisory Committee. And this item is to recommend the reappointment of Mr. Doug Aguilera, CPA, as chair, and Ms. Kathy A. Johnson, CPA, as vice chair of the Enforcement Advisory Committee. As you may know, this committee assists the Board of Accountancy in an advisory capacity with enforcement activities. And those matters involve or include reviewing closed investigation files, providing technical guidance on open investigations, and participating in investigative hearings. I have conferred with the Board of Accountancy's executive officer to verify that these individuals have met the appropriate requirements for license renewal and have also demonstrated the skills and knowledge to continue serving in a leadership capacity on this committee. With that, I would like to make a motion to reappoint Doug Aguilera, CPA, as chair, and Kathy A. Johnson, CPA, as vice chair of the Enforcement Advisory Committee, effective January 1st, 2023 through December 31st, 2023. With that, I will turn the microphone back to President Savoy to request a second.
Do I have a second?
I second the motion.
Thank you. Any further discussion from the board? Any comments from the public in Sacramento? Moderator, any public comments from anybody else?
Moderator, the Q&A is now open. Instructions are on the screen. You can press the question mark inside of the square, type comment, and send it to all panelists, or *3 if you're calling in to raise your hand. No requests? Would you like me to close the Q&A?
Yes, thank you. Ms. Reed, call for the vote.
Katrina Salazar,
Yes.
Michael Savoy.
Yes.
Yin Tu,
Yes.
Nancy Corrigan. Yes. Christian Lotta,
Yes.
Luz Molina Lopez,
Yes.
Dee Dee Owens,
Yes.
Ariel Pay,
Yes.
and Joe Rosenbaum.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Ms. Salazar, next item.
All right, thank you, Mr. Savoy. Item 3B relates to our qualifications committee. And this item is to recommend the reappointment of Mr. Michael L. Williams, CPA, as chair, and Timothy T. Jones, CPA, as vice chair of the Qualifications Committee. As you may know, this committee assists the Board of Accountancy and its licensure activities by reviewing the experience of applicants for licensure and making recommendations to the Board of Accountancy. This process includes conducting work paper reviews with the applicant or the employer present to verify the responses provided are reflective of the requisite experience for licensure. I have conferred with the Board of Accountancy Executive Officer to verify that each individual has met the appropriate requirements for license renewal and has demonstrated the skills and knowledge to continue serving in a leadership capacity on the Qualifications Committee. So with that, I would like to make a motion to reappoint Mr. Michael L. Williams, CPA, as chair, and Timothy T. Jones, CPA, as vice chair of the Qualifications Committee, effective January 1st, 2023 through December 31st. 2023. And with that, I turn that back to Mr. Savoy to ask for a second.
Can we get a second, Ms. Latta?
I second that motion.
Thank you. Any further discussion from the board? Any comments from the public in Sacramento? Moderator, any comments from the public wherever they are?
The Q&A is now open. Instructions on their screen. You can press *3 to raise your hand or press on a question mark, type comment, and send it to all panelists. No request. Would you like me to close the Q&A?
Yes, thank you. Ms. Reed, call for the vote.
Nancy Corrigan,
Yes.
Christian Lotta,
Yes.
Luz Molina Lopez,
Yes.
Dee Dee Owens,
Yes.
Ariel Pay, Joe Rosenbaum,
Yes.
Katrina Salazar,
Yes.
Michael Savoy,
Yes,
and Yen Tu.
Yes.
Motion carries.
thank you. Next item, Ms. Salazar.
Thank you. Item 3C relates to the Peer Review Oversight Committee, and this item is to recommend the appointment of Laura L. Ross, CPA, as chair, and Fausto Hinojosa, CPA, as chair of the Peer Review Oversight Committee. This committee assists the Board of Accountancy in an advisory capacity in the oversight of the peer review program. And with all appointments and reappointments, I have verified that the individuals have met the requirements for license renewal and have demonstrated the skills and knowledge to serve as a member or in a leadership capacity on the Peer Review Oversight Committee. So with that, I would like to make a motion to appoint Laura L. Ross, CPA, as chair, and Fausto Hinojosa, CPA, as vice chair of the Peer Review Oversight Committee, effective January 1st, 2023 through December 31st, 2023. Thank you. And with that motion, I turn it back to President Savoy.
Can I get a second, please?
Second.
Mr. Pay, thank you. Any discussion further at the board? Any public comments in Sacramento? Moderator, any other public comments?
Moderator, the Q&A is now open. Instructions are on the screen. No requests. Would you like me to close the Q&A?
Yes, thank you. Ms. Reed, call for the vote.
Joe Rosenbaum,
Yes.
Katrina Salazar, Michael Savoy,
Yes,
Yen Tu,
Yes.
Nancy Corrigan,
Yes.
Christian Lotta,
Yes.
Luz Molina Lopez,
Yes.
Dee Dee Owens,
Yes.
and Ariel Pay. Motion carries.
thank you. Thank you, Ms. Salazar, for the report. Moving along to item agenda number 4, the report of the Secretary Treasurer, Ms. Chu.
Thank you, President Savoy. I would like to report on the fiscal year 2021-2022 year-end financial statement. The CBA budget authority, thank you, for last fiscal year was $18,084,000. The budget authority for the current fiscal year is set at $17,898,000. All right, if you want to follow me and from the written report, I will be referring to the pages for the next couple of comments. As displayed on page 2, actual expenditure total was $16,212,061, which resulted in a surplus of 10.4%. Yay. On page 3 to 5 are highlights of the key expenditure items, including a display of enforcement expenditures for the past 5 years. Moving on to page 6, our total revenue for fiscal year 21-22 amount to over $16 million, reimbursement total of over $200,000. And then, of course, if you turn to the fund condition statement on page 8, the expenditure totals are located in the bottom of the portion of the page, and the CBA and fiscal year 2021 to 2022 with 6.7 months in the reserve funds. That concludes my report. If you have any questions, please let us know.
Any questions of Ms. Chu or of anybody? Thank you for that report. Looks like item number B is being deferred. Letter C is being deferred to a future meeting. Let's move on to agenda item 5, report of the executive officer. Letter A, a discussion regarding implementation activities for the 2022-2024 strategic plan. Ms. Pierce.
Thank you, President Savoy. This agenda item is to update the CBA on the activities that are occurring to complete the objectives contained in the 2022-2024 strategic plan, which the board approved at its March meeting. I'd like to highlight a few of the activities that are occurring, but I'm happy to answer questions on any of the objectives and also have the division chiefs available to assist. Using attachment 1 as a guide, I'll draw your attention to objective 2 under the enforcement goal, which states implement leading technologies for enforcement case management to reduce case completion timeframes. The launch of CBA Connect for complaint intake has both streamlined the internal process for case intake and improved the consumer experience by facilitating the online receipt of supporting documentation. The work to develop an enforcement case management system is scheduled to start early next year. Moving to licensing and still focusing on technology, the launch of CBA Connect for online license renewal has significantly increased customer service to our licensees, and the implementation of the continuing education upload via a new Excel template addresses additional feedback from licensees on how to improve the system. Ms. Benedict, CBA License Renewal Manager, will be providing a demo of this enhancement shortly. There are additional enhancements that will be explored for CBA Connect in 2023. On page 2 for customer service, the CBA recently launched a new website to improve the availability and access to information for consumers, applicants, and licensees. We continue to use other communication tools such as podcasts and videos to address common questions for all audiences. The podcasts and videos are also posted on our website for easy viewing. For our outreach goal, we provide an update on all our outreach activities at each CBA meeting, and Mr. Ibarra will provide an update shortly on the recent events. But as you can see, we are making progress to achieve the identified objectives. And then I'm going to move to page 4 regarding organizational effectiveness. Ensuring the CBA maintains an efficient and effective team is critically important. As referenced, ongoing staff training is a priority, and linking this to our customer service goal, I'm pleased to report that staff at the CBA will attend a customer service training this month. In addition, all staff are encouraged and supported as they expressed interest in a variety of training options, both internally and externally. Training is beneficial to the CBA and supports employee development. That concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions that the members may have.
Any questions, comments? Thank you. Moving on to the next item, which is the report of the presentation of the California Board of Accountancy's annual report. Also, Ms. Pierce.
Thank you again. The purpose of this agenda item is to present our annual report for fiscal year 2021-2022. The annual report discusses the accomplishments of the CBA during the prior fiscal year, specifically the work achieved in fulfilling the directives and policy objectives set by the CBA as we fulfill our mission to protect consumers. The report is made available to key stakeholders and will be published on the CBA website following approval by the board and incorporation of any edits that the members may have. The report is broken down into several sections, and I'd like to briefly discuss some of last fiscal year's highlights. For outreach and social media, the CBA expanded its video production capabilities and initiated a podcasting. The CBA's college and university outreach continued in the virtual environment throughout the fiscal year. This virtual environment provides an opportunity to reach a larger and more geographically diverse number of people. In enforcement, the CBA received about 4,400 complaints and closed 3,126 investigations. Just over 80% were closed within 6 months from the initial complaint investigation date, and 98% were closed within 1 year. Our licensing division successfully maintained our processing timeframes below the 30-day goal. In addition, the CBA provided expedited services to those in the military and their families, as well as refugees, asylees, and special immigrant visa holders. CBA staff continues to work on the business modernization project to achieve its goal of creating a more efficient licensing, renewal, and enforcement process for all stakeholders. The CBA Connect system has a fully automated online license renewal system, which launched in April 2022, and a separate system provides for an online complaint submission. Business modernization will continue to be a priority in the coming years. I'd like to note that if any members have edits or corrections to the report, please let me know and we can incorporate those before the final posting to the website. And I'd just like to thank Ms. Corrigan for catching things that we missed after about 1,000 reviews. So we appreciate that and we're working on correcting those. That concludes my presentation and I'm happy to answer any questions that members may have.
Any questions? Thank you, Ms. Pierce. I guess you can continue with the Administration Division report.
Okay. The report of the Administration Division provides updates on the Administration, Information and Planning, and Information Technology units at the CBA. We have received many positive comments to our CBA Connect survey in the few months it has been active. These comments arrived even before our recent CE uploading process upgrade that we're going to talk about here in just a little bit. One of the responses read, and this is a quote, "I've been using your renewal system since 1986. This was much better than the past. Organizing and reporting CPE was greatly improved. Everything worked as it was supposed to. I love being able to track my application through the process." So this person has been through a lot of renewals, and so we're getting some positive feedback, and that is awesome. So I'll continue to share feedback as it comes in, and we are very optimistic regarding the new CE upload process as well. Couple of regulatory items to highlight are the satisfactory evidence regulations for applicants mailing their own transcripts or foreign evaluations directly to the CBA was approved and will take effect January 1. Also, the proposed elimination of the second signature on the experience form rulemaking was filed with the Office of Administrative Law and is currently in a public comment period. And the sale, transfer, or discontinuance of a licensee's practice will be noticed effective tomorrow, and that public comment period will end in early January. That will also be sent to all licensees based on the type of change that it's proposing. So for the licensees on the board, you will get a letter and the proposed text in the mail as well. So just a heads up on that. Last month, we welcomed a new manager to our examination unit, Mr. Ortega, and it's right there, waving. There are still 12 vacant positions at this time. However, we have increased our recruitment efforts, specifically in the vacant ICPA positions, including posts on social media, and partnering with DCA to determine other methods to identify qualified individuals. And my last update, I have to report, sadly, that Mr. Ibarra, our Information and Planning Officer, will be leaving the board. I hate to put you on the spot, but he's back there in the corner. He has accepted a much-deserved promotional opportunity in the private industry. I'd just like to extend my appreciation to him for all the work he has done for the board in the couple of years that he's been here. He's really expanded our outreach activities and provided innovative ideas, takes amazing pictures and videos, as we just saw with President Savoy, and has really identified solutions to assist us in meeting our consumer protection mission. So certainly wish him well in his future opportunities. And if there's anything that the Board of Accountancy is known for, it's stealing employees back once they've left. So I'm keeping that door open just in case that's, an option in the future. That concludes my presentation on this agenda item, and I'll turn it back over to President Savoy, but also happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Pierce. Any questions? Ms. Tu?
I have an opportunity this last year to work with Peter, and I just want to say, round of applause.
Thank you. And without further ado, the next report is an update on the California Board of Accountancy's communications. Mr. Ibarra.
You had to announce it right before I went on, huh? First, I'd like to thank everybody for my time here. It's been a great experience, and I'm going to recommend it to anybody else who has the opportunity to come to this team. Good morning again. Today we're going to be talking about the California Board of Accountancy Communications and Outreach Report. After a great deal of behind-the-scenes work, a refreshed version of our website was officially unveiled on October 3rd. It's got some eye-catching elements like a carousel of rotating images you can find on the top of the homepage, a cool graphic that will be updated monthly that breaks down the total number of licensees you can find on top of the licensees page, just to name a couple of things. But most importantly, it's a better user experience for our visitors. With improved customer service being one of our biggest focuses this year, the website now better reflects our attempt at reaching such goals. I know a few of you were in attendance at the NASBA annual meeting a couple of weeks ago down in San Diego. Didn't President Savoy do an excellent job with his Welcome to California presentation to kick off the meetings? He was like a full-fledged San Diego and California tour guide, pointing out lots of great things for the meeting attendees to see and do around the area. He even broke it down in the middle with some California trivia and channeled his inner game show host. Great job, President Savoy. Another big moment that happened at the NASBA annual meeting was when our own executive officer, Patty Bowers, was recognized with the Lorraine P. Sachs Standard of Excellence Award. Ms. Sachs herself presented the award, which goes to a state board executive that shows outstanding service to improving the effectiveness of accounting regulation. We put out a press release and announced the award on social media as well, resulting in many throughout the profession congratulating Ms. Bowers on the achievement and saying how well deserved it was. I think we at the CBA all agree. Some of our newest board members were featured in Update 96, our newsletter, which came out in September. The issue included interviews with both Joseph Rosenbaum and Evangeline Ward. Christian Lara will be featured in the next issue, Update 97, due out next month. So make sure you take a moment and read those interviews, if you haven't already, to get to know your fellow members a little better. CBA members and staff participated in 2 events with Cal CPA in the last few weeks. On October 24th, CBA licensing and enforcement chiefs, Michelle Center and Dominic Franzella joined the Cal CPA Accounting Education Committee meeting to discuss past and future changes to the licensing process and to answer questions. Then just last night, CPA member Rosenbaum headed to the Sacramento chapter of Cal CPA's annual student night. The event was titled CPAs Work Hard, Play Hard. He spoke to the students about the role of the CBA, plus the examination and licensure requirements to become a CPA. Thank you for doing that. To accompany the recent CBA Connect upgrade, allowing licensees to upload CE all at once from a spreadsheet, CBA License Renewal and Continuing Competency Unit Manager, that's a mouthful, Sarah Benedict produced a how-to video with step-by-step instructions and visual examples of the upload process. The video is posted on the videos page of the CBA website if you'd like to take a look at it, but I have a feeling you might see it before that. I am happy to report the CBA social media pages are growing rapidly. October was the 5th straight month with gains over 100 followers. LinkedIn has added almost 50% to its following over the past 12 months. We continue to use the immediacy of social media as a valuable tool to spread our messaging. That concludes my presentation on this agenda item. I'll now turn it back over to President Savoy, but I'm also happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Barr. Any questions? Thank you also. You know, I would be nothing without you guys. Just wind me up and I'll go. But thank you and David for, preparing me always. And I'll be missing you as well.
Thank you, President Savoy. Mr. Barr, I'm going to miss you terribly. I really do appreciate your enthusiasm and your excitement for accounting. And I would love to suggest to staff to please include excitement and appreciation for accounting as part of the job description for the next person to fill your role. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving ahead to the next item, Ms. Sarah Benedict will be giving us a demonstration of the continuing education data file template featured in CBA Connect.
Thank you, President Savoy. The purpose of this agenda item is to provide members with a demonstration of the recently launched continuing education data file template upload feature in CBA Connect. In May, project specialist Suzanne Gracia demonstrated how licensees could use CBA Connect to renew their CBA license. She showed how the continuing education courses, or CE for short, are entered one course at a time into CBA Connect. The CBA received feedback from several licensees requesting the ability to do a bulk upload of CE courses into CBA Connect as opposed to entering them one by one. Staff understood that licensees may have their completed CE tracked in an already existing database. For example, they may use a CE tracker at their place of employment or one provided by their CE provider. Some licensees may simply be tracking their CE in a log they generated themselves. Based on this understanding, staff worked with CBA Connect developers to create a new feature that allows users to upload multiple continuing education records into CBA Connect simultaneously by using an Excel template. The CE data file template is available on the CBA Connect user dashboard and on the CBA website. Prior to posting the Excel template in CBA Connect and to the CBA website, the CBA collaborated with CalCPA and KPMG on a pilot to test what records could be extracted from their systems, saved into the CBA CE data file template, and uploaded into CBA Connect. We are very thankful for the staff at CalCPA and KPMG that dedicated time to this project. It is important to note that anyone can use the new CE data file template, not just those who participated in the pilot. This is because the upload of the data is still done by the licensee and is not a transfer of data directly from a firm or CE provider to CBA Connect. I worked with the CBA outreach team to create a how-to video that will assist licensees in using the CE data file template. The video will serve as a demonstration of this new feature, and I will play that video for you now.
We're always happy to assist you. We can be reached by email at renewalinfo@cba.ca.gov or by telephone at 916-561-1702.
So before we turn this back over to you all for questions, I want to acknowledge Ms. Benedict for the video. So this is a how-to video. It's not one of Patrick and David's fancy putting on wigs videos. Those are more like promotional videos, but these how-to quick videos are useful for those individuals that want some quick information on how to use the new applications we're developing. So this is the second how-to video that my division has been able to produce, and we think that these short little videos are going to be helpful to the field and hope to do more of them in the future. So thank you, Sarah, for the work you did on the video. Back to you, President Savoy.
Thank you.
Thank you, President
Ms.
Savoy.
Lopez.
Thank you very much, Ms. Benedict. I really enjoyed that video. And thank you, Ms. Center. I really do encourage you to make more of these videos, you know, short, quick how-to videos. I think, you know, with the onset of YouTube, everybody just goes and looks for a video for how to do something. And so I think this is phenomenal. I know it is a tool that we are also using in my place of employment. So short videos like that, I think, are the way to go. Thank you.
Ms. Salazar.
I would also like to echo that. I think it's fantastic that we are finding more diverse ways to communicate with applicants and licensees. Can you tell me whether or not closed captioning within that video might be available for those that are maybe hearing impaired? I'm sure, I know they're written instructions, but I love the visual, and I think a lot of people respond to learning that way. So thank you.
Yeah. Because this will be available in YouTube, YouTube can auto-generate closed captioning.
Thank you so much.
Any other questions? Mr. Rosenbaum?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I didn't have the opportunity to see the video until today, but I was in the system yesterday and used the template, and it's fantastic. It really works.
Any other comments? Thank you. Thank you so much. We appreciate it. Mr. Fox has a comment.
I just want to acknowledge the CBA licensing team. When we had a conversation when the online system first rolled out, we realized this CE reporting was going to be a real pain point. And so working with the board staff, they were very quick to create a system, and we're happy to help work and pilot and test that. So kudos to the team for their work on that.
Thank you. Any other comments? Thank you so much. Appreciate all your hard work. Next item, number 6, reports of the Enforcement Advisory Committee, the Qualifications Committee, and the Peer Review Oversight Committee. Mr. Doug Aguilera, Enforcement Advisory Committee first. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Doug Aguilera, and I am the Enforcement Advisory Committee Chair. I will be presenting CBA Item 6A1, report of the October 6th, 2022 Enforcement Advisory Committee meeting. The EAC again held its meeting in person here on October 6th, here at the CBA office in Sacramento. I would like to thank CBA member Joseph Rosenbaum for attending the EAC meeting and providing an update on CBA activities. At the meeting, members reviewed approximately 45 case files. The case files included open, closed, and intake investigative files, and members provided valuable insight and feedback to assist staff with next steps in the investigative process. And the members of the committee also learned a lot about the process by hands-on review. The EAC also held 3 investigative hearings in a hybrid format, with the licensee participating via WebEx and the panel members participating in person at the CBA office. The December 1st, 2022 EAC meeting has been canceled. However, 2 investigative hearings will still be conducted. Our next EAC meeting will be held on February 2nd, 2023. That concludes my report, and I would be happy to answer any questions CBA members or members of the public may have.
Any questions? Thank you for participating and giving us your report. Next item. Qualifications Committee, Mr. Michael Williams, he has no report. Jeff DeLizer has no report. Beautiful. Item number 7, discussion of possible action to amend the California Code of Regulations, Title 16, Division 1, Sections 87, 88, 88.1, 88.2, 89, 90, continuing education. Ms. Center.
Thank you. This is legal, if I may. The attorney for the regulations attorney is not on yet, so we'd like to wait for him to get on. I can let him know, or if we can postpone this till after lunch.
He's on.
Oh, he is now? Okay, thank you.
Okay. So the purpose of this agenda item is to provide the board the opportunity to discuss and possibly amend California Code of Regulations, Title 16, Division 1, Sections 87, 88, 88.1, 88.2, 89, and 90, specifically related to continuing education or CE. The proposed regulatory amendments provide increased flexibility for CPAs completing CE by providing additional learning methodologies, additional subject areas, and the opportunity to earn CE in 10-minute increments. Following the CBA approval of proposed regulatory text in July of 2022, the CBA filed the necessary documents with the Office of Administrative Law. The public comment period began on August 19th, 2022, and concluded on October 4th, 2022. During the 45-day public comment period, the CBA received 2 written comments, which are included in the agenda item. After careful consideration and in consultation with the DCA's legal staff, CBA staff determined that neither comment warrants any changes to the proposed text. CBA staff recommend that the board adopt the motion as follows. Adopt the staff recommended response, to the comments regarding the proposed regulatory text. Adopt the regulatory text in CCR Title 16, Sections 87, 88, 88.1, 88.2, 89, and 90. Direct staff to take all steps necessary to complete the regulatory file, including submitting to the Director of the Department of Consumer Affairs, the Business Consumer Services and Housing Agency, and Office of Administrative Law, and authorize the executive officer to make any non-substantive changes to the proposed regulations and adopt the proposed regulations as originally noticed. At this time, I'll turn it back over to President Savoy and will do my best to answer questions.
Is there any questions? Can I get a motion? That's two.
I will make a motion to accept the report from staff.
Second, Ms. Salazar.
I would like to second.
Any further discussion? Any public comments from Sacramento? Moderator, any public comments from everybody else?
This is the moderator. The Q&A is now open. Instructions will be on the screen for your reference. If you'd like to participate, click on that question mark inside of the square, type comment, and send it to all panelists. Or if you're calling in, press *3 to raise your hand. I see no requests. Would you like me to close the Q&A?
Yes, thank you. Ms. Reed, call for the vote.
Christian Lotta,
Yes.
Luz Molina Lopez,
Yes.
Dee Dee Owens,
Yes.
Ariel Pay,
Yes.
Joe Rosenbaum,
Yes.
Katrina Salazar,
Yes.
Michael Savoy,
Yes.
Yen Tu,
Yes.
Nancy Corrigan,
Yes.
and the motion carries.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Center. Next item is the report of the Enforcement Chief, Mr. Franzella.
Thank you, President. Thank you, President Savoy. Good morning, members. So the activity report before you today is for the first quarter of fiscal year 22-23, so ending on September 30th, 2022. During that time, the CBA received 1,094 complaints. The graph on the bottom of page 1 provides a comparison of the total complaints received as of the same reporting period for the prior 2 fiscal years. And you'll note, when compared to the prior 2 fiscal years, we received an increase of 138% over 2021 and 78% over the prior fiscal year. On page 2, we have included information on the top 3 complaint types, with the complaint of unlicensed activity being the top complaint. Moving on to investigations and investigations pending on page 3. At the end of the first quarter of the fiscal year, staff had closed just over 1,200 cases, with 99% being closed within 1 year. The average days to close investigations is 111 days, which is a slight increase over the end of year report we last provided. And enforcement had a pending inventory of just over 2,000 cases as of September 30th, with only 1 case being over 24 months, and it was actively still being investigated. And members will see that our average day of open cases is at 95 days. Moving on to discipline, which is on page 4 of the report. The CBA has referred 13 matters to the AG's office and filed 6 pleadings. The CBA had 41 matters pending at the AG's office, with 1 set for hearing that was over 24 months. And lastly, the CBA had taken action on 5 disciplinary orders. As for citations on page 5, during the first 3 months, the CBA had issued 17 citations, with 36% of those citations related to peer review. The CBA had received 8 citation and fine appeals and and had withdrawn or modified 4 of those citations, with the most likely rationale being that either the licensee provided new mitigating evidence or complied with the issue that resulted in the issuance of the citation. As for unlicensed activity, which is on page 6, already for this year, the CBA has received just over 500 complaints regarding unlicensed activity, and I can report that that number has gone up substantially since this time, so that number continues to grow. The vast majority, again, have been, I guess at the time of this report, 97% of the complaints had come from one individual, again, revolving around CPA, potentially individuals who are advertising as CPAs on a specific social media platform. During those first 3 months, we've managed to close 167 investigations, with all of them being as a result of obtaining compliance. The last area of your report, of the enforcement activity report, relates to probation monitoring on page 7. As of September 30th, we had 121 individuals on probation. We'd identified 16 probation violations, with the vast majority being failing to submit quarterly written reports. So with that, I'd like to turn discussion back over to President Savoy, and I'll do my best to answer members' questions.
Any questions on Mr. Franzella's report? Thank you, Mr. Franzella. Next item is the report of the licensing chief. Back again, Ms. Center.
We are on a roll. Okay. The Licensing Activity Report, or LAR, covers the period between July 1, 2022 and September 30th, 2022. If you have the LAR in front of you, turning to page 2, we have responded to over 26,000 stakeholder inquiries in the form of email or telephone calls. On page 3, you'll note that the examination unit has approved over 4,000 applications to sit for the CPA exam. The initial licensing unit has approved close to 900 applications for CPAs and firms, and both units are processing below the 30-day goal. I feel like it's just a given now. I don't even need to say it anymore. On pages 5 through 7, data related to renewal deficiencies and continuing education audits are displayed. Table 7 includes CE audit data. As of September 30th, 777 of the 877 audits selected in 21-22 were found to be compliant. 38 audits had identified deficiencies that were resolved. 1 is still outstanding, and 61 were referred to enforcement for noncompliance. 266 licensees were selected for audit in the first 3 months of fiscal year 22-23. Of those 266, 121 were found to be compliant. Table 8 includes population data. As of September 30th, the CBA had a grand total of 114,741 licensees, registrations, and permits. On page 9, data related to military and refugee, asylee, and special immigrant and visa holders are displayed. We continue to not have a large population, but continue to process those in an expedited fashion. So that concludes my presentation. I'll turn it back over to President Savoy.
Any questions? Ms. Salazar?
Thank you very much for that presentation. I was reflecting upon this report, and one of the things I did, I've been on the board for a while, so I pulled up some report that is available on our website from old meetings. And first want to say that the LAR has changed and it's really expanded and evolved, so thank you. It's fantastic to have this kind of data. My ask, when I kind of took a data point from 10 years ago from a prior meeting report that's available online and compared it today, I realized what I would like to request for a future meeting is possibly a little bit more historic, not to be integrated into the LAR, but just a snapshot, because we are talking about issues during our meeting of pipeline. And I would like to see a longer term trend in how initial license applications issued are trending for us. And then also, I thought the CPA exam applications for our candidates within our state for first time and repeat sitters would be important. Because when I looked at it, in general, I see our overall license population is increasing, but we also have a lot of inactive and retired. And so I'm curious if we can kind of see the history, if that's available in comparative type data. I know the report has changed a lot, but a question that is asked to me is California experiencing a decline? And with the focus on a year-over-year comparison, it's harder to see the longer-term trend. So that would be my ask, maybe at a future meeting, it be considered by staff for some additional perspective on that particular issue.
Thank you. We'll take that back. We also have the quarterly NASBA data that we provide, and I think that probably gives, I think it's more historical than what our LAR is. So we'll look at your request, what we can potentially add in addition to what we already have from NASBA.
And I would say it may have been provided. I just realized as I was reviewing this particular report, it wasn't handy. Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you for that great report. Before we move on to letter number X10, Ms. Pierce wants to make an introduction.
Just wanted to introduce a member of my team. You've probably all either communicated with him via email or spoken to him on the phone. The one, the only, David Hemphill, who is part of our outreach team, is here just to kind of observe, and you never know, you may see him at our next meeting giving the communications and outreach report. So just wanted to do a quick introduction to him, and thank you for being here, and thank you for being on our team.
Thank you for all your hard work. I mostly appreciate it. Next item is number 10, the minutes. I need approval. Can I get a motion to adopt the minutes of September 22nd, 2022 CBA board meeting, specifically agenda item 10A, which includes non-substantive edits that were noted after the materials were received? Mr. Pei?
Motion to approve.
Adopt. Do I get a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Any comments from the public in Sacramento? Moderator, any comments from anybody else?
This is the moderator. The Q&A is now open. Instructions are on the screen. If you would like to participate, click on the question mark, type comment, and send it to all panelists. Call out users, you can raise your hand by pressing *3. No requests. Would you like me to close the Q&A?
Yes, thank you. Ms. Reed, call for the vote.
Joe Rosenbaum,
Yes.
Ariel Pei,
Yes.
Dee Dee Owens,
Yes.
Luz Molina Lopez,
Abstain.
Christian Lotta,
Yes.
Nancy Corrigan,
Yes.
Yen Tu,
Abstain. I was not here.
Michael Savoy,
Yes.
Katrina Salazar.
Abstain.
The motion carries.
Thank you. Next item is, can I please get a motion to accept the minutes, specifically agenda item 11B and 11C, which includes non-substantive edits that were noted after the materials were received?
Motion to accept.
Thank you, Joe. Ms. Owens, thank you. Any further discussion at the board? Any public comments from Sacramento? Moderator, any public comments from anywhere else?
The Q&A is now open. Instructions will be on the screen. No requests. Would you like me to close the Q&A?
Yes, please. Ms. Reed, call for the vote.
Dee Dee Owens,
Yes.
Ariel Pei,
Yes.
Joe Rosenbaum,
Yes.
Katrina Salazar,
Yes.
Michael Savoy,
Yes.
Yen Tu,
Yes.
Nancy Corrigan,
Yes.
Christian Lauda,
Yes.
and Luz Molina Lopez.
Yes.
The motion carries.
Thank you. Next item is an afternoon break. Well, we'll get there maybe later. Other business, item 11, the American Institute of Certified Public Accountants. Anybody do we have a report on that?
I have a report.
Ms. Salazar, I'm sorry.
Thank you so much. And if President Savoy will indulge me, I'd like to just give my reports under this item consecutively, if that's all right. Thank you so much. So in terms of the AICPA report, I would like to start with the State Board Committee, which is a subcommittee of the Board of Examiners. So that meeting, the State Board Committee meeting, was held on September 13th. Part of this is a communications between state boards and AICPA, and so there is in-depth discussion of the hot topics facing boards, very similar to what Ms. Corrigan does as a regional director within our Western region. So some of those things that I thought were of note to share here was there continues to be a lot of discussion about what various states are allowing for internship credits for our educational experience. And then there was a change being discussed by our neighbors in Nevada, and hopefully I'm not stepping on your toes here, but in this meeting, they shared that they're looking at changing CPE requirements from a rolling 80 hours to a 40-hour annual requirement. And their reason for doing this was to minimize licensee confusion and to streamline the process for people, basically keep it simple. So I thought that was interesting. And again, we do, communicate with neighboring boards. So I thought that was interesting that one of our shared border states is making that change. The next meeting of the State Board Committee won't be until January 10th of next year, and that is the last item. And I will move on to the BOE and then open it up for any questions if there are any. So the Board of Examiners has met twice since I last reported. That was on August 3rd as well as October 27th. Conveniently, these are all virtual meetings. In this BOE meeting, one of my roles is to report the hot topics from the State Board Committee meeting up to the larger Board of Examiners within the AICPA. But there's also a lot of discussion and administration content there. So there's discussion of overview and discussion of Prometric SOC report results. There is already discussion happening at the AICPA about the score releases for 2024. So you may know that score releases are already out for 23. So these things are all related to evolution. And so those have had a lot of communication, planning, and strategy around them to ensure that it is workable for licensees as well as state boards. There was an update on the CPA exam finances. And I think kind of my takeaway from that was that from the AICPA perspective, what I heard out of that presentation was the declining exam sections are just putting cost pressure on the per unit delivery cost of the exam. And so the AICPA is going to be evaluating that. That's part of what they do every year. But again, they are reporting reduced nationally and internationally combined, a reduced section. So again, that kind of goes to my question about seeing greater visibility with our state where those trends are headed here. There was discussion about CBA evolution. The practice analysis exposure draft comments were a topic item. There was an update on the annual blueprint review, and there were also CPA pipeline initiatives that were first shared at the AICPA's Fall Council. And some of those highlights were integrated into the two presentations at the NASBA meeting. So those were from the Center of Audit Quality as well as AICPA. So I would just mention that there is a lot of crossover in making sure that organizations are working together to communicate information to interested stakeholders. So the next BOE meeting is scheduled for January 1st, December 1st of this year. And that concludes my report on the AICPA. I'd be happy to take any questions and then just move on to the NASBA CPE committee report.
Any questions? Thank you.
Okay, so
let's go.
In terms of the NASBA CPE committee, just so this board is aware, the CPE standards are an evergreen document that is revisited every 2 years along with the field study document. So this year in 2022, the CPE Standards Working Group, the NASBA CPE Committee, and the Joint NASBA and AICPA CPE Committee started and completed the review process for this and have approved and proposed the revised CPE standards and field study documents to be presented to NASBA and AICPA for their boards to vote on for exposure. So I'm happy to say that the NASBA board did approve that at their board meeting in October, and AICPA is concluding their process during the month of November. So these documents will be released in the near future, and all boards of accountancy will be asked to provide input during the open comment period. So just wanted to highlight that will be another opportunity for a board agenda item in the future. And with that, there's a lot more happening at NASBA, but we have a lot of other folks involved. And so I will defer any additional comments on the NASBA Board of Director role for the committee members and those who attended the annual meeting.
Thank you. Ms. Corrigan, take it away.
Thank you, President Savoy. I will miss saying that, President Savoy. So I'll get it in there again. Okay, so as the NASBA Pacific Regional Director, I know some of you were able to attend the annual meeting and the regional breakfast meetings that were held. Just as kind of a reminder, maybe for some of those who are newer on the board or who haven't attended before, the 55 jurisdictions are broken down or allocated into 8 regions. And mine, the one that I head, is the Pacific region. And so that one includes California, Alaska, Arizona, Commonwealth and Mariana Islands, Guam, Hawaii, Oregon, and Washington. So when we get into these sessions, and of course, Pacific region always has robust sessions because there's so much to discuss, and those 8 jurisdictions do everything very differently. It's very interesting. So just so that you know. So during that time, we reviewed responses to the third quarter focus questions, which you all had a chance to see at the September meeting. And other topics that were discussed were principal place of business and mobility, as well as CPE reciprocity. Again, those jurisdictions having quite a bit of variety in how they handle all of that. Which jurisdictions maintain data on number of licensees, age demographics, etc. California does a pretty good job of that and always developing more. Of course, we have nearly 115,000 to keep track of, a little different than some of them, right? Competing in the new world of remote working and staff shortages. So pipeline is a ever-present issue. How to attract and maintain staff. What jurisdictions are doing as far as outreach to students. And California is kind of a forerunner on that, was able to give good ideas to other jurisdictions as well as learn from what some of them are doing. But the jurisdictions will be ready for the new CPA exam implementation. And I want to say that on October 20th, an email was distributed to all EOs and EDs regarding the tentative timeline for that implementation and for jurisdictions to reach out to NASBA if they anticipate having a problem meeting that timeline. So that was very important. Jurisdictions are discussing considering the 150-hour education requirement, and some are considering working with 2-tiered licenses, for example, Hawaii, and of course we know that we have an A and a G license as well. So that concludes that part of my report. And I am happy to go on to the
Computer-Based Test Administration Committee, and we met on September 30th, or I as a chair met with AICP and NASBA staff, and industry issues were discussed along with regulation of the profession, with a key topic being how we drive audit quality. And that is in line with the new standards that will be released and be effective December 31st, 2025. Those will be statements on quality management standards versus what currently we have really is quality statements on quality control standards. The difference between those is that prior was policies-based, and this will be risk-based approach. So quite a bit of difference on how that is approached and implemented. And there was quite a bit of focus in that conference regarding peer review quality and management, such as focusing on first-time peer review and how to ensure firms get into the peer review cycle, how state boards track and are aware of firms' peer review status, and looking to state boards as being key to having the positive results with peer review, with the peer review process. So kind of the monitoring really happens at that state level. We noted that 9 jurisdictions have procs at this time. I thought there were more, but I thought I heard them saying only 9. 53 of 55 jurisdictions do require require peer reviews. So in some way or in another. Audit quality goals, improving reviewer quality, improving administering entity quality, being tougher on peer reviewers, taking action faster on removing firms or individuals from the peer review program and requiring faster remediation of firms, all in the line of improving quality. So AICP is developing a practice aid that will go hand in hand with the new standards that will be effective. They're being a little bit careful how they refer to terminology in the CPA evolution, the new exam document, because again, some of these standards are not effective yet. So moving on, November 15th, a couple of days ago, chairs of the committees that gave input to NASBA's response to the exposure draft on the CPA evolution project met. I have to say the AICPA took the letter, which was pretty comprehensive from NASBA, and went item by item and had analyzed it, brought their feedback back to us. Just so you know, the AICPA received 47 response letters. 3 were from state boards, 1 of which was us, so that was nice. And there were some 300 comments were received as well, and they had to do with, you know, where sections of the exam were located, what should be included, state and local government, why certain topics were not included. NASBA's response was because they're generally kind of included under, you know, there's some things that are common to different aspects of accounting, so they felt that that had been inclusive. For the colleges and universities, timing implementation issues, being ready for all of this. Pipeline, which we have talked about. The definition of newly licensed CPA. So for the exam, that's like 1 to 2 years experience. But how about the student that has no years of experience? How are they looking at that? So just questions like that to do. Should there be more disciplines? Right now we have 3: tax compliance and planning, information systems and controls, business analysis and reporting. Some responses wondered if we should have more and whether there should be specialized licenses to correlate with those disciplines. So you can see that the responses to the AICPA's exposure draft were really, really broad. Regarding the practice analysis comments that have been made, before the most recent one leading up to CPA evolution, it was from 5 to 7 years, so every so often that would be looked at. And the recommendation is it does need to be more frequent because we have so many environmental, changes in the profession. The AICPA's response was, yes, we understand that, but kind of depends on the nature and extent, because to do a practice analysis is a pretty in-depth process. You just don't, decide we're going to do one day because it doesn't happen that quickly. Anyway, please note, it was announced earlier that I have a new appointment to the Education Committee, so this is my last report as a CBT Administration Committee Chair. Thank you. And I guess I can give a report on 11B3D, Relations with Member Boards Committee. We met as a part of the annual meeting. We reviewed virtual meetings held on September 16th that I previously reported to all of you.
And at that meeting, we planned the breakfast meetings that we held as a part of the annual meeting and how to best address the responses to the focus questions, and then discuss the format and going future so that we make it most meaningful for the member boards. And with that, President Savoy, I conclude my report and welcome any questions or comments from members.
Questions, comments? Thank you. Great comprehensive report. The last item on this agenda is the report of the NASBA Association Board of Accountancy's annual meeting, which took place October 30th through November 2nd, which many of us attended. The actual agenda is included in item number 11 for those to see what exactly took place. I found it, I believe it was one of they called it Rebound because it had not held an in-person meeting for 2 years. And I thought that was very important, and it was very well attended. I think all told, close to 300 people, including guests, spouses, significant others. I found it refreshing, great conversation, chance to rekindle friendships with folks that I first met 10, 11, and 12 years ago. So I was happy to participate. Maybe Nancy or Katrina can add a little bit more, but I personally want to thank both of them for stepping up and taking leadership roles to make California relevant again. While they kept talking about, us being the largest of the 55 jurisdictions in terms of population of CPAs, for many years, we didn't really take leadership positions. So I'm extremely happy that both of them have stepped up. And hopefully we'll continue to have board members step up to those positions at NASBA to continue our relevance within that association. Nance?
And it was nice to see Ms. Tu joining in as well. And that was great. We did have a report of the CPA Examination Review Board. And so that board gives state boards assurance that they can rely on the examination results in carrying out duties and licensing and that. So that was good to know. But again, it was a fantastic meeting. So yeah.
Ms. Tu?
Thank you, President Savoy, and I concur with you tremendously regarding our two representatives on NASBA's board. They represent us very well, and we get to see that in person at the meeting. The second comment, I know our stomach is waiting for us to be done with our comments, but I appreciate staff getting permission for some of us to be able to attend because it is in state this year. And for myself, I gained a lot of insight. One of the funny things happened was that I didn't realize we're Pacific region, so I assume we're Southwest region. California, right? Southwest. But I had an opportunity to go actually listen in, being an interloper for another region, and they are so different. And the one thing that I was aghast by, some of the states literally have 3 staff members, and their licensees are less than 50 license, and their perspective is very different, and it was fascinating.
Point out that some jurisdictions have no staff and the board members are doing literally everything. And I cannot imagine not being able to call, Patty, Dominic, Deanne, or any of them. I cannot imagine we couldn't possibly function that way. We're pretty spoiled, so thank you.
Thank you, and hope I'm not stepping on anyone's toes here. I do appreciate all of it, and so happy that we had such a wonderful attendance. I would like to repeat again we've heard it once that Mr. Savoy did an amazing introduction. Our state was very well represented. I'm going to say it again. Patty Bowers was recognized with the Lorraine P. Sachs award, which is an incredibly prestigious award, and it was highly competitive this year, and she was recognized, and it was fantastic. So your words were very touching, and Mr. Savoy did a great job in delivering them for you in your absence. But I would also comment that when Ms. Corrigan mentioned the exam review board presentation, I would like to share with our board members that Mr. Ruben Davila, who made the presentation, is currently a professor at USC, but is a former California Board of Accountancy member. So again, there really was some fantastic representation. Board members that do leave the Board of Accountancy are welcome to continue to remain engaged with NASBA and participate as affiliate members. And so the only other thing I would mention is we talked about pipeline today, and there was a very interesting presentation from the Center for Audit Quality. And one thing that stuck out with me, I would pass along, is that there's a lot of work sort of communicating and launching another way of being enthusiastic and exciting and approaching accounting to make it fun and engaging. And so that is through the Accounting Plus program. So there is a website for the Center for Audit Quality that is rolling that out. So it is on social media, so support it. Look it up, see if it interests you. And I think it does go to some of the comments that this board has echoed in terms of how they would like to see our profession represented. So thank you so much, and Mr. Savoy.
Thank you. And I do appreciate NASBA's consideration to have these meetings in states other than the 23 no-fly zones that make it a little more difficult for us to attend in person, and really appreciate the coming to California this year, where we had, was it 5 or 6 board members attend? With that, and being so ahead of schedule, we'll break for lunch a little early and come back at 1:30. Thank you. Okay, welcome back. Let's move along with agenda item 12, report of the Enforcement Program Oversight Committee meeting from this morning. Mr. Pei.
This is the moderator. I'm going to interrupt for just a moment, so I'm going to start the recording.
This meeting is being recorded.
Thank you.
Thank you, President Savoy. The EPOC meeting report, November 17th, 2022. I would like to report on 2 items, 12A2 and 3. Item number 2, discussion and possible action to incorporate into the disciplinary and petitions processes the National Association of Board of Accountancy Center for the Public Trust Ethics Leadership Training. Staff presented this item, which provided members information regarding NASBA's Center of Public Trust, CPT, Ethics Leadership Training for possible incorporation into the CBA disciplinary guidelines and petitions process. Staff noted that 14 states are utilizing in training for recommendation purposes. The CBA has established the CBA disciplinary guidelines for the use of administrative law judges, attorneys, CBA licensees, and staff involved in the CBA disciplinary process. The guidelines cover model orders, including factors to be considered in aggravation and mitigation, rehabilitation, standard probationary terms, petition for reinstatement, reduction of penalty, and guidelines for specific offenses. As a part of the last edits to the disciplinary guidelines, the CBA included ethics continuing education as a standard term and condition for licensees placed on probation. The ethics continuing education term requires individuals to complete 4 hours of continuing education in core subject matter pertaining to ethics. If the CBA wishes to incorporate the ethics leadership training into certain aspects in its disciplinary process, petition process, or both, it can start to do so on a case-by-case basis, which would be limited to stipulated settlements and petition. The EPOC recommends that the CBA incorporate the Center for Public trust, ethics, leadership training into the CBA disciplinary guidelines for consideration on certain aspects of its disciplinary process and petition process on a case-by-case basis. And this is a fully formed motion and does not require a second. I will turn it back to President Savoy for discussion and action.
Thank you. Any discussion? Any public comment in Sacramento? Any public comment from outside of Sacramento?
This is the moderator. The Q&A is now open. The instructions will be on the screen for your reference. If you would like to participate, click on the question mark inside of a square and type comment and send it to all panelists. If you're calling in, you can press *3 to raise your hand. No requests. Would you like me to close the Q&A?
Yes, thank you. Ms. Reed, call for the vote.
Nancy Corrigan,
Yes.
Christian Lada,
Yes.
Luz Molina Lopez,
Yes.
Dee Dee Owens,
Yes.
Ariel Page,
Yes.
Joe Rosenbaum,
Yes.
Katrina Salazar,
Yes.
Michael Savoy,
Yes.
and Yen Tu.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Mr. Page.
Okay, thank you, President Floyd. Item number 3, discussion and possible action regarding information provided to individuals petitioning for termination of probation or reduction of penalty pursuant to Business and Professional Code Section 5115. Staff provided an overview of which this item, which included information regarding the petition process for individuals who petition for reinstatement of certificate or reduction of penalty, and the revisions staff performed to the California Board of Accountancy Petition Hearings Manual, which is included in Attachment 4. Staff noted that in November 2019, staff presented to members a revised petition form, which is Attachment 2, and the manual at the November 19, 2019 meeting. The revision was completed to ensure the petitioner submits a complete petition package. The manual is provided to all individuals who request a petition form. The manual offers information on all overall petition hearing process, the role of the CBA, information on burden of proof, and references to prior petition hearings. Staff recently reviewed and updated the information provided to petitioners, including the petition form and the manual. Petition form did not require any updates. However, there were several updates to the manual. In our materials on page 3 of this item, staff have highlighted the most notable changes. Staff noted in an effort to ensure members and petitioners are provided with the most up-to-date information available. The CBA will review the petition-related processes and make any necessary revisions annually. This was an informational item and no action was needed. That concludes my report. President Savoy.
Thank you. Any further discussion at the board? Any public comments from Sacramento? Moderator, any public comments for outside of here?
This is the moderator. Instructions are on the screen. Members of the public, if you would like to participate, click on that question mark, type comment, or press *3 to raise your hand. No request. Would you like me to close the Q&A?
Yes, thank you. Ms. Reed, call for the vote. No vote. Okay, thank you very much for that report. Next item, one of my favorite agenda items every November, is the election of officers. Each year, the CBA elects a president, vice president, and secretary-treasurer. The CBA officer elections will be held in the following order: secretary-treasurer, vice president, and then president. Attachments 1 through 3 are statements of qualifications from 3 CBA members: Mr. Rosenbaum, seeking secretary-treasurer; Ms. Tu, seeking to serve as the VP; and Ms. Salazar, seeking to serve as president. Prior to the leadership position vote, members that have not previously submitted a statement of qualifications will have an opportunity to express their interest in the position, and all candidates will be given up to 5 minutes of floor time to describe why they are qualified for the position. Once all candidates are identified for the position and they have been provided the opportunity to address the CBA, a vote will be taken for each candidate, starting in alphabetical order by the candidate's last name. The first nominee to receive a majority vote will win the officer position. The newly elected president, vice president, secretary, treasurer will assume their respective offices at the conclusion of the meeting and will serve one-year terms. At this time, Mr. Rosenbaum has submitted a statement of qualifications for the secretary treasurer position. I'd like to open the floor to see if there's any additional members who would like to serve in this position. Seeing none, I'd like to call for a motion and a second for the secretary treasurer position. Ms. Corrigan.
I move for the election of Mr. Joseph Rosenbaum for the position of secretary treasurer. Thank you.
Ms. Owens. Thank you. Is there any further discussion at the board? Any public comments from Sacramento? Moderator, any public comments from anybody else?
This is moderator. The Q&A is open. Instructions are on the screen. No request. Would you like me to close the Q&A?
Yes, thank you. Ms. Reed, call for the vote.
Dee Owens,
Yes.
Ariel Pay,
Yes.
Joe Rosenbaum,
Yes.
Katrina Salazar,
Yes.
Michael Savoy,
Yes.
Yen Tu,
Yes.
Nancy Corrigan,
Yes.
Christian Lotta,
Yes.
and Luz Molina Lopez.
Yes.
The motion carries.
Congratulations. At this time, Yen Tu has submitted a statement of qualifications for the vice president position. I'd like to open the floor and see if there's any additional members that would like to serve in this position. Seeing none, I'd like to call for a motion and a second. Ms. Lopez?
Thank you. I would like to make a motion to elect Ms. Yen Tu to Vice President of the CBA.
Mr. Pei?
I'll second.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Any comments from the public in Sacramento? Moderator, any comments from anybody outside of here?
The Q&A is open. Instructions are on the screen. No requests have been submitted. Would you like me to close the Q&A?
Yes, thank you. Ms. Reed, call for the vote.
Yen Tu,
Yes.
Michael Savoy,
Yes.
Katrina Salazar,
Yes.
Joe Rosenbaum,
Yes.
Ariel Pay,
Yes.
Dee Owens,
Yes.
Luz Molina Lopez,
Yes.
Christian Lotta,
Yes.
and Nancy Corrigan.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Congratulations, Ms. Chu. At this time, Katrina Salazar has submitted a statement of qualifications for the president position. I would like to open the floor to see if there's any additional members at this time that would like to serve in this position. Seeing none, I would like to call for a motion and a second. Ms.
President Savoy, I would like to make a motion for Ms. Katrina Salazar to be the president of the CBA for the coming year.
Ms. Lara?
I second.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion? Any public comments from those in Sacramento? Moderator, any public comments from anybody else?
As moderator, the Q&A is now open. Instructions are on the screen. Members of the public, if you would like to participate, click on that question mark, type comment, and send it to all panelists, or press *3 to raise your hand. No request. Would you like me to close the Q&A?
Yes, thank you. Ms. Reed, call for the vote.
Luz Molina Lopez,
Yes.
Christian Lotta,
Yes.
Nancy Corrigan,
Yes.
Yen Tu,
Yes.
Michael Savoy,
Definitely.
Katrina Salazar,
Yes.
Joe Rosenbaum,
Yes.
and Ariel Pay.
Yes.
The motion carries.
Congratulations, Ms. Salazar. Closing business. Are there any items for future California Board agenda that anybody would like to bring up at this time? Is there any agenda items in the public in Sacramento that you guys would like to bring up? Mr. Fox? Please do. Put the mic right up to your...
So bear with me while I have a couple comments here. So first I want to acknowledge Mr. Savoy for the completion of his third term of president and being the driving force between efficient but effective meetings. And I'm most appreciative of you helping drive the fact that we're bringing everyone back together and having in-person meetings and the personal connections that come from being in person. And congratulations to Ms. Salazar, Ms. Tu, and Mr. Rosenbaum for the election. Looking forward to working with you the next year. So bear with me, as I understand this might be Ms. Bowers' last in-person meeting. So bear with me. I read some comments into the public record, and her career is not fitting for just offhand comments. So bear with me here. So throughout her illustrious career, Ms. Bowers has proven to be highly competent, diligent, and committed to upholding the high standards that are essential for an effective consumer protection board. Most notably, Ms. Bowers has approached her work with integrity, professionalism, and the thoughtful consideration each issue deserves. Without a doubt, very few people have been as influential as Ms. Bowers in the implementation of policies that regulate the CPA profession in California and nationally. As Executive Officer of the CBA, Ms. Bowers has overseen the adoption and implementation of significant consumer protection policies in California, including mandatory peer review, enhanced continuing education requirements, enactment of mobility, modifications to the licensure framework, and rigorous enforcement policies, and many more that would take days to go through the list. Ms. Bowers has overseen high level of engagement with public stakeholders, undertaken CBA operational efficiencies, initiated outreach to consumers, licensees, and candidates, and has professionally represented the CBA before policy leaders on numerous accounts. Ms. Bowers has also supported the personal and professional development of her staff at the CBA, providing opportunities to grow skills and advance in their new roles. Many of the staff you see here today are part of the policies that Ms. Bowers has put into place, cross-train and promote within. It's offered this board a very highly capable and respectful team. Her willingness to contribute and lend her expertise has earned the respect of her peers in California and across the country, as we saw with the NASBA award that she received a few weeks ago. Importantly, Ms. Bowers has demonstrated the trust, integrity, competence, and commitment to the public interest that are core to her regulatory role. She has been thoughtful and thorough in her analysis, articulate and comprehensive in her recommendations, and undaunted in the face of challenges. She has been passionate about her work and committed to meeting the public's expectations of a regulatory role. We thank her for her years of service to the public and profession. This board is very fortunate to have somebody like Ms. Bowers at the helm. And on a personal note, she's been a good friend and a confidant in helping everything. And so on behalf of Cal CPA, congratulations on your retirement. Well deserved.
I myself echo those sentiments and appreciate not only Ms. Bowers, but the board for making me look good over the last 12 years. Thank you for all your service. And it's been a great 12 years if this is my last meeting. Thank you all for allowing me to lead this group for 3 of my 12 years and for sitting at the top here in 9 of my 12 years. So thank you all. If I'm so lucky to serve my grace year, then I'm sure I'll see you again. One thing we did forget is, moderator, can we get any public comments regarding any future agenda items before we go into closed session?
Yes. The Q&A is now open. Instructions are on the screen. Click that question mark, type comment in the text field, and send it to our panelists. If you're calling in, press *3 to raise your hand. No requests. Would you like me to close the Q&A?
Thank you.
Mr.
With that,
Savoy?
yes.
I apologize for interrupting.
No.
Could I say a couple words about leadership? Thank you. So I have nothing as eloquent prepared as Mr. Fox, and was trying to write some stuff this week to say at the last meeting, but clearly it's an emotional time for me. Patty hired me on here as a renewal manager back in 2008. No management experience, but a lot of drive and enthusiasm. And I was just telling one of the other managers that I remember my interview with Patty where she expressed no emotion at all and did not crack a smile one time. Little did I know that that would be what I do now at the board meetings with the webcast where we show no emotion. We're just very business. So I guess what I was saying is, she was mentoring me even before I actually started my first day here. And when I started here, the first 24 hours were probably the roughest. I wasn't sure if this was what I was made to do, but then within a week or two, I knew just by the team environment and Patty's mentorship that it was the right move. And so it's been, for me, coming up on 13 years, nowhere near the 30 that Patty has here at the board, but it's been a crazy ride, an amazing ride. I've learned a lot from you, and probably that's why I didn't write anything down, because it would be like a book, and we'd definitely be getting choppy comments from Mr. President about wrapping it up, which I'm trying to do here. But we've tackled some major issues as a board. The leadership from this board, Mr. President and everybody here over the years, but really through your leadership, Patty, has been amazing. And when I talk about my time here at the board, I say I'm an employee here, and I'm proud. I am truly, truly proud to be an employee here, and I just appreciate your leadership, your mentorship, and your friendship over all these years, and I'm going to miss that. So thank you. I appreciate it.
It's a wrap. Let's go into closed session now. Thank you all.